When choosing a dentist for our family, Tupelo Smiles was the answer for us. They greet us with warm smiles right when we walk in the door, and they make us feel so welcome. We love Tupelo Smiles.
At First Choice Bank, we know you can't always make it before the bank closes. With our integrated teller, you can talk to a live person as late as 7 p.m. on weekdays and noon on Saturdays. It's not just an ATM, it's an ITM. First Choice Bank, your choice for banking.
Mississippi's trusted weather experts. This is Mississippi Live Weather at 10.
Welcome into the Room to Room Weather Center. I'm meteorologist Gabe from Mississippi Live Weather at 10. Going to bring it back over here to the wall where we are, of course, breaking down these threats as we head into those overnight hours and for the start of our Friday. That's the start of the threats, but then those threats gradually building as we head into those afternoon hours once again. So again, we thank you for joining us tonight for the 10 o'clock hour, talking the latest on what we're seeing right now on our Mama Justice Doppler radar. Of course, not showcasing much, just going to be a few of those showers that are just starting to form as that unstable air mass still remains overhead. So if we circulate this back over the last 3 hours, you can see how these showers are just now starting to pop up. Now, nothing significant with those as of yet, but we are getting a little bit of that rainfall to occur as we head into those overnight hours. But as you can see, if we expand things out and go to our Memphis radar site, a little bit more impressive out there in Little Rock and of course up north there towards Sikeston, Missouri. That of course working its way east, and that is all attached to a cold front that's going to be gradually working through North Mississippi overnight and for the start of our Friday. So as you take a look right there on our expanded surface analysis there on Mama Justice Doppler radar, getting a few of those warnings around St. Louis with severe thunderstorm warnings in place, and even just a little bit south of St. Louis and east of Springfield. Now, that severe weather threat still remains in place right now as we head into those overnight hours, that level 1 threat that we'll talk about in just a moment, but level 2 threat in place for Mississippi and really for South Mississippi as we move towards our Friday afternoon. But that threat starting now and working our way into those overnight hours. If we put on a few of those storm reports already, we did have a confirmed tornado just south of Oklahoma City. Now, it's not an impossibility. We do get some rotating storms heading into our forecast tomorrow, but we do expect that main tornado threat to be further south. The rest of us, just wind reports, and that's going to be seen all throughout this line as it works its way across North Mississippi. Now, I do want to note, some of those wind reports don't necessarily have to have a severe thunderstorm warning attached to it. So that's why those winds are definitely going to be a concern as we head into this next 24 hours. So level 1 threat continues tonight across northwest Mississippi, but that level 2 threat working its way through the rest of our area and for portions south, and that level 2 threat continues into tomorrow's forecast and into tomorrow evening as well. So that latest on timing and those impacts, that's what we're going to be talking about at the 10 o'clock hour, and of course breaking down those threats in more detail. So here's a look at your severe weather risk for our Thursday, and I know it's weird, it's Thursday. Technically it carries over into our Friday morning, Friday around 6 a.m. And you can see that level 1 threat pushing really far east compared to what we saw even the past 24 hours. So that threat gradually pushing just a bit more towards the east. That's going to be that front that extends all the way across North Mississippi as we get into those early morning hours. And that level 1 threat still primarily going to be those wind gusts, but we could see some hefty thunderstorms or strong thunderstorms as we get overnight as well. This is the severe weather risk we've been talking about all week long in preparation of course, staying safe and getting prepared ahead of time. Well, we're now in the main event as we head into our Friday forecast. Level 2 threat encompassing a large portion of North Mississippi, even northwest Alabama. But if we work our way south, you can see that down in southern Mississippi, that continues to be the heart of the risk, and that's where we expect the highest impacts to be made based on what we're seeing on radar right now. And we'll look at that in just a moment. So the first 11 p.m., you can see still those limited chances starting to build into those overnight hours, and those 30% become 60% by 2 a.m., still with those rumbles of thunder. And we do expect that this is going to be a thunderstorm-heavy forecast into tomorrow morning. A lot of those we do expect to be elevated, so we're not exactly talking about severe storms, but some rumbles of thunder, some strong wind gusts, not out of the realm of possibilities. 5 a.m., 70%, and then we'll experience a little bit of a pause as we work towards that midday forecast, but then into the back half of the day, that's where that secondary threat pushes in place. So let's go ahead and get into that. What we're going to be looking at first is fuel, overlapped with some of our Futurecast models as well. And you're getting a look at those showers that are already starting to form across I-55 and really for portions out west. If we move that forecast even over the next couple of hours, by 1 and 2 a.m., you can see how a large portion of these showers and storms still out ahead of all of this energy out there along the Mississippi River. That's a good thing. And we want that to continue to be the case Because what that means is these are going to be more elevated, that energy not exactly allowing for the lift these storms need to in order to become something a little bit more significant. So as these work their way through the area, this is not a concerning batch of storms as we get into those early morning hours on our Friday. Now, one note with this forecast, you're going to hear rumbles of thunder. You're going to experience some stronger thunderstorms with the rainfall being a little bit stronger. But again, we don't expect those to be severe, at least for that early morning forecast. But that fuel back behind it, you're seeing a little bit of those showers starting to form within that fuel, and that could produce some stronger thunderstorms on the back half of the day, especially where that fuel is a little bit more apparent. But where the fuel is more apparent, and if we zoom this out, we'll get a better look at this. Look at all those yellows that are showing up and bright oranges down there in Alexandria, Lake Charles, and even over there towards Houston, Texas. Again, this area down south is where we expect the large batch of energy to be and the most significant chance of seeing any of these severe weather reports. So where those storms start to develop, and we're getting a good look at that here by 6 a.m. on our Friday. These storms out here towards the Marksville, Louisiana area, Natchez, Mississippi, and then up there towards Brookhaven, this batch, not going to be surprised at all if this starts to make its way northeast and maybe producing some stronger storms as a result. So what we're going to look at now is another form of our futurecast, but this one's showing storm rotation. And we're going to talk through this and, of course, use what we just saw and apply it to our storm rotation. So we were talking about a lot of these storms that are happening overnight being elevated. You're not getting any helicity tracks with these because it's just not exactly going to be rotating high above and all the way to the surface. No, we're not getting any rotation with those storms. Again, some of them could be strong. They're just not deep enough to really produce any of that tornadic development. So by 4 a.m., again, still tracking some rumbles of thunder along portions of Eupora, Houston, even up around Tupelo, right along that Natchez Trace corridor. And as we work our way into that start of our Friday for folks there in Caledonia, Columbus, even down around Louisville and Macon, not going to be surprised at all if we hear a few rumbles of thunder and even have to deal with some pretty hefty rainfall as well. Now, a large part of this, the large part of these helicity tracks, these very faint helicity tracks, you can see that there's limited rotation. But again, we do expect a lot of these to be elevated, so that's not going to be a concerning forecast for us. So as we head into those overnight hours, this is definitely a welcome sight to see because it means that we're not overly high on those severe weather chances overnight. Doesn't mean a thunderstorm can't happen. We're talking more on the strong thunderstorm part of things. So severe weather risk area, level 1 threat still, like I mentioned, right along parts of Lee, Chickasaw, Winston, and Oktibbeha County, pushing all the way south into Jackson and even just on the cusp of Monroe, Louisiana. So that's where that level 1 threat is for tonight. And if we assess each risk area, damaging wind is of course the primary concern, but not ruling out the possibility of a tornado. But notice where that tornado threat lies. All the way out here in the Delta, really along the Mississippi River. Why is that? Where was the energy that we tracked just a moment ago? All across the river. So all these storms that are moving their way out ahead of this system, not concerned for tornadic development. That is primarily going to be with some of those individual cells out there in Arkansas, northeast Louisiana, and really right along the river. And even then, not overly impressed with what Futurecast has so far. So let's carry that over and of course look at those low temperatures for the start of our Friday. Gabe, why are you showing low temperatures? To show you how unstable of an environment that we have. Remember, dew points are kind of our floor for how much we cool off overnight. So dew points already for the start of Friday, only going to be in the low 60s. So we're not falling off significantly. That moisture will remain overhead and it doesn't have to rebuild through the day. It's already there and will continue to climb as we get into those afternoon hours. So Futurecast, we're going to go back to our fuel for our Friday. And as you can see, this large mass of showers and thunderstorms that are out along the Alabama state line, still out ahead of where that significant fuel lies. So again, as we head into the start of our Friday, not overly concerned with what we're seeing on Futurecast. But if we jump down south, Brookhaven, Jackson, Crystal Springs, all of this development right here lining up pretty well with that fuel. Going to be interesting to see how those continue to trend as we head into those Friday morning hours. And this line extends all the way from Brookhaven and Jackson southwest into Lake Charles, Louisiana, Alexandria, Natchez. So this line is really what I'd be watching for, and even these isolated cells out ahead for any tornadic development. So let's carry this over into your noontime hour, and I'll bring it back up to North Mississippi in just a moment. But again, the reason why I'm not looking at North Mississippi right now, that's a good sign because all of this fuel still remains down south. And you're getting these individual cells that develop in a very primed environment for severe weather to take place or for some deepening with those storms. So as this moves into that environment, these cells will continue to pick up steam, but depending on how many cells form, and Matt's been mentioning this, again, you can't have two great quarterbacks. You either have one great quarterback or just a lot of players that are insignificant to the game. So that's where we're dealing with that exact situation. A lot of development going to be happening, and if we get one storm to be able to eat up all this energy, then that'd be a whole different scenario. But we're not exactly getting that with this setup. We do expect a lot of storms that are trying to eat at the same amount of fuel, and therefore not going to hopefully produce anything that significant. Not saying a severe thunderstorm is not an impossibility, but we're talking about those more damaging storms that are on the higher end of that severe scale. So as we keep it going with the Futurecast, of course, this is how much fuel we have, and a large part of that lining up along Highway 82 and for portions south. So a lot of these storms, honestly, positioning not lining up either. So with these storms that are out ahead of it, this is going to be that leading edge that we watch for any of that stronger development. Back behind it, again, these showers and storms, that's already going to be an environment that's been eaten up by by those storms that have already happened. So as we move into those afternoon hours, this is again 2:30 on your Friday. Looking at the grand scheme of things, of course, you can see where the more significant fuel lies. That's going to be down around Macomb and Hattiesburg and even all the way into Louisiana. So that's why that level 2 threat was extended all the way into that Gulf Coast region. But as we get more into North Mississippi, that fuel not going to be as significant. As we get into the afternoon, though, we do get some extra development to happen, and that's because it doesn't take much to get this area back primed for severe weather to happen. So as we get a look right there with that fuel still basically south of Highway 82, some of these storms, if they line up well with that fuel, then of course we could be talking about some gusty winds along that leading edge. But as we take it more into those evening hours, you can see that there's not much deepening that happens, and I'm not overly concerned about what I'm seeing on Futurecast so far. So as we look at storm rotation, I'm showing you this not because of North Mississippi. I'm showing you this because look at what our area is showing compared to others. And we're going to keep it on a large scale right here. So there's that line that's moving through by mid-morning, and again, carrying out all of that moisture and all of those thunderstorms there to northwest Alabama. Still not showing any helicity tracks. There is some that try to rotate down around Jackson, that storm that we were tracking just a moment ago, working our way into Meridian. And if this continues in that forecast, then we will see that carry over into Alabama. But again, it's entering an area that's not as primed with fuel, and it's moving out of an area that is very primed with fuel. So you can see how things are going to trend as we head into the rest of our Friday. Again, not exactly tracking those deepening storms into Tuscaloosa. So I think, again, our highest severe weather threat, or our highest tornadic threat, going to be down south into Jackson and Hattiesburg especially. So as we keep that Futurecast going, our storm rotation going, you can see that there is that brief break by midday. And as we keep it going into that mid to late afternoon forecast, you can see a few of these individual cells that stand out, especially down there just north of Baton Rouge. This one especially catches my attention because you have those purples that are showing up. That means there is a level of deepening that they're not exactly getting up here in North Mississippi. So watch how these trend. Of course, those purples starting to show up a little bit more, and some of those brighter streaks mean that there's more rotation, more potential for any tornadic development. But again, we're talking brief tornadoes. We're not talking about long-lived tornadoes, because even then, you see all these cells that are around it that are going to eat at some of its energy. So that's why we're not overly concerned, but not an impossibility to get these brief spin-ups. That still, best threat remains further towards the south. But if I expand it out one more time, and allow me to do so here real quick. This is, again, looking at the grand scheme of that mid-south area. Look out here in Texas. This is going to be one to pay attention to as it trends into Louisiana and then northwest Mississippi, because as it trends, you can see those brighter streaks still in place and potentially producing some of those brief tornadoes. It's still not an impossibility, but it is a lot of storms in one confined area, and that's going to basically compete with each other to produce any tornadoes. So we're going to be paying attention to that as it moves out of Texas into Louisiana and then potentially into northwest Mississippi, as some of our models trying to hint at it extending that way. But right now, our severe weather threat is a level 2 threat for portions of North Mississippi and working our way south into Jackson, Hattiesburg, Baton Rouge, and New Orleans. So that's where we sit right now, breaking down each individual threat. Damaging wind is, again, the main concern with a lot of these cells, and that still, I would say, is the best threat further towards the south, but that leading edge, especially overnight and into our afternoon forecast as well, that's where we could get some of those damaging wind gusts. Tornadoes, not an impossibility for a brief tornado to happen, but again, I feel like this area down south is more primed than what I'm seeing up in North Mississippi. And I'll be interested to see if they modify this a bit to accommodate for those cells that are rotating a little bit more down south than up north. So right now, level 2 threat still extends for portions of Highway 82 and south, but I wasn't seeing anything that I was overly concerned with a lot of these cells as we work into that extended forecast. Not saying it's an impossibility, but I'm saying it's not as primed as for folks down around Jackson. Severe weather threats are low confidence, still in a brief spin up. That means that it's still possible, but again, it's not exactly showing us too much to be confident about as we head into that extended forecast. medium confidence on those damaging winds. Still not an impossibility. Now, those are just damaging winds. I will say that damaging winds don't have to be 60 plus miles an hour. 40 miles an hour can knock down some trees or knock down some telephone poles, so be safe out there. And of course, we'll update you on any of those reports that we do get here on Mississippi Live Weather. Hail threat, pretty much low. We're not exactly tracking anything overly concerning on that front, but that medium flash flood risk. We're going to go ahead and get into this a little bit on accumulated totals, but we could be looking at some decent outputs of rainfall as we work into our Thursday night and Friday morning. So flash flood potential, level 1 threat still in place for folks along and south of Highway 82. I know I'm going to keep saying that, but that's that focal point for us here in North Mississippi. And that is, of course, for tonight and into 6 a.m. on your Friday. And then tomorrow, that level 2 threat extending right across Eupora, up into Amory, and then all the way up in that northeast direction towards Russellville, Alabama, carrying over into Birmingham. That's where there's going to be large outputs of rainfall, and especially not just here in the southeast corner of our viewing area, all the way down south into the Jackson area as well because of that hefty rainfall. So rainfall totals, if you look at a few of those as we head all the way into our Saturday morning, we're talking 2, 3, potentially even 4 inches where those showers really line up. And again, I'm going to say it one more time, south of 82 showing the highest outputs. But if we work our way north, a half inch to an inch, not an impossibility, especially with the overnight showers and storms that we will be getting due to how heavy that output of rainfall will be. So as we take a look at high temperatures, or not high temperatures, our futurecast extending beyond our Friday, you can see that it's going to be a much calmer forecast moving overnight and into our Saturday. So there's that large batch of moisture we were talking about just a moment ago. But if we keep that moving and that frontal boundary extends right across North Mississippi, this is where it's producing not only a few rumbles of thunder, but a lot of rainfall as a result. So that's why I took it all the way through 7 a.m. Helps accommodate a lot of this moisture that we'll be seeing behind that main severe weather threat. That front moving out of North Mississippi into those early morning hours of our Saturday, and back behind this front, we're talking about a much better forecast. So you're waking up to some soggy conditions Saturday, going to be much better as we wrap up the day. So go ahead and make some plans to get outside and enjoy what should be a pretty good forecast to wrap up our Saturday. That carries over into the 6 o'clock hour, and you can see those northwest winds right overhead, drying up that forecast a bit more. And this will be definitely a forecast to look forward to once all of this severe weather threat does clear out. And high temperatures take a drop as a result of that frontal boundary. Upper 50s there on Saturday, mid 60s still down south and east, just because it takes a bit for that front to work its way on through. But that record 77 won't be close to that. And finally, we can say that with some confidence as we take a look at that extended pattern. So Friday, still with those thunderstorms expected, 70% chance. Saturday at 30% there for the morning hours. But beyond that, clearing on up as we head through on Monday and Tuesday, and 20% there by midweek as a few more showers are possible. But again, all eyes are on Friday and, of course, what to expect. And we'll, of course, reassess that in just a moment. But coming up here in the next 60, what are we going to be talking about? Well, our Ethan Foster was out in Corinth tonight. I was there with him for a brief moment. And we were, of course, having our game of the week. And that was over in Corinth as Biggersville took on Corinth, played host to Corinth, and it was a fun matchup to say the least. We're going to be talking about that in more detail coming up on Mississippi Live Weather at 10, of course, after the break here in the next 60. So we'll see you back right after the break.
When you've been injured, don't settle for a lawyer who doesn't even know where you live. Call Langston and Lott. Local lawyers, personal service, real results.
Out with the old and in with the new. It's time to save big at Room to Room's New Year's sale. Store-wide markdowns 50 to 70% off, no tax, 48-month special financing. It's a new year at Room to Room Furniture in Tupelo. There's no place like home.
Right now, from the Room to Room Weather Center, here's meteorologist Gabe Maynor.
Welcome back here to the Room to Room Weather Center, continuing to assess tomorrow's risk, but we are continuing to look at your Game of the Week highlights. And of course, I know there's a big game happening right now. I'll update you on that here in just a moment with the Ole Miss Rebels playing host to the Miami Hurricanes. But we had our local game here for our high school basketball, and we went out to Biggersville to watch Corinth take on Biggersville for the Alcorn County County playoff. And let's go ahead and take a look at the highlights shot by our Ethan Foster. Our Mississippi Live Weather game of the week tonight, as we mentioned earlier, tonight was the Biggersville Lions taking on the Corinth Warriors. As you can see, tip off right here, getting that game started, it was a heated battle for sure. Jameer Barton missed a one-hand jam right here. Insane. Wish he could have gotten that down. Tylen Mays with the rebound and missed put back. Braden Burris for another rebound. Back to Mays for the inside jumper. Lots of inside basketball with this one. Back and forth in the first half for the Lions. Zay Mays passes down to Brooks Sego, who had 25 points for the Lions in their last game. He knows how to play inside basketball. You'll be seeing a lot more of him tonight. Right here for Corinth, Swayze Hartnell on the wing, passes it back up to Barton, then back down to Hartnell for a heat check. Three is good. Both teams playing inside and outside tonight to keep it close. As you can see right there, remember our guy Brooks Sego, yeah, he's back. He can play it inside and he can play it outside too. Kobe Hill had the assist and Sego finished with his own deep three ball. That made it 19-25 in favor of Corinth, but still the Lions are working to fight back. All right, here are the Warriors playing full court transition basketball. Hartnell with the rebound and taking it down court. Pass to Jameer Barton for the one-hand jam. There it is. He missed one early in the game, but hey, he bounces right back literally right before halftime. With just under 2 minutes left in the first half, the Lions trailed by 6. Who else could have it but their leading scorer, Brooks Sego, taking him to work, finishing the play, dribbled down inside, and got physical for the and one. He was fired up about that one. This game seemed to be in Corinth's favor early. The Warriors led by just at halftime, the Warriors led by just 3 points. But at the end of it all, even through overtime, the Corinth Warriors held on to win 70-66 over the Biggersville Lions and secure a hard-fought victory. They got the revenge game, and Biggersville is handed its 5th loss of the season. Of course, thanks again to Casey Law and our game sponsors for tonight's Mississippi Live Weather Game of the Week. Make sure to tune in next week and vote for who you would like to see next and who you think should win Cheer Squad of the Week and Spirit Squad of the Week as well. All right, as we bring it back in here to the action-packed night there in Biggersville. Ethan was telling me all about it. Glad we got to attend that game, and definitely one for the ages, 70-66. A heated matchup, finished in overtime, and Brooks Sego, need I say more? Dude's a beast. And of course, the one-hand jam, you got to highlight that as well. But those weren't the only players that were lighting up the court. We also have our band and spirit squad of the week. Let's go ahead and, actually not band, we are talking about our spirit section of the week. Yeah, a little feature we're putting in with our basketball highlights. Let's take a listen at what they had to say. So they were hyped. Need I say more? They were excited about that one. Corinth winning it tonight. Corinth winning the game as well. Needing that clean sweep. Let's take a look at who won our cheer squad of the week. And I have a feeling one fan base is going to be real happy about who came out on top.
Go, Big C! Go, Big C! Come on, go, Big C! Go, Big C! Go, Big C! What's up? Go, Big C! Go, Big C! 1, 2, 3! You're watching Mississippi Live!
So as I said, you are watching Mississippi Live and appreciate the Corinth Cheer Squad for being our Spirit Squad of the Week. Excited to get back out there on the hardwood next week, but definitely a matchup for the ages and one to start out our year of covering high school basketball. You know, we did football in the fall. Well, of course, basketball, the spring sport that we're going to be covering for high school athletics. But we are going to keep eyes on baseball as well as we head further into that forecast. So let's go ahead and take a look at your Mama Justice Doppler radar as we get into those overnight hours. Still tracking these showers that are out and around Oxford, Water Valley, and Bruce. Greenwood seeing a few of those as well. And as you can see, these are starting to work their way into the region just a bit more. If we put it on that hour loop, you can see how these have extended just a little bit more. And again, that's that unstable air mass that's allowing for some of these showers and storms to occur. So as I look in the chat, I want to make sure that, okay, I see that some folks are asking about specific areas. Again, as we head overnight, we're continuing to track the the chance at severe weather as we get into our Thursday night and Friday morning, and then of course into the rest of our Friday. That level 1 threat overhead still going to be something of a concern as we get into those really early morning hours on our Friday, and that's where we could see some damaging wind gusts and some heavy rainfall as well. But our main threat still continues to be on our Friday with that level 2 threat overhead, and a large part of this is going to be for that Friday afternoon and evening threat as that cold front continues to move on through. That threat tracker, of course, what are we paying the most attention to continues to be those strong wind gusts. Like I mentioned, doesn't have to be 60 plus miles an hour to be impactful. And I do expect some sporadic outages as we get into that extended forecast just because of that cloud to ground lightning, but also some of those wind gusts. So go ahead and charge everything tonight. And if you charge that, your mobile device, of course, you'll be able to watch us on that using the Mississippi Live Weather app. Even if your TV goes out, you still have us accessible right there in the palm of your hands. Flash flooding, also a possibility. That medium threat is overhead. And again, that's for how much rainfall we'll be getting. 2 to 4 inches definitely expected, so we want you guys to stay safe in that front as well. As we look at that extended forecast, you do note that it is going to be a much calmer forecast and it is going to be a much colder forecast. So for those that have missed the winter weather, it will be back by early next week as we drop to the mid-20s Monday, upper 40s by the afternoon, and then Tuesday we get slightly warm, but definitely not anywhere near where we're at right now. An abnormal pattern overhead, and that's why we are going to be dealing with those severe weather chances as well. But there is something to look forward to, and you guys can have that on the horizon as we go through tomorrow's threat. We are going to have updates as needed. I'll be here overnight with you guys tracking every bit of these storms as they develop overhead. And if there is any concern on one of these storms, we'll cut in and update that for you guys here on Mississippi Live Weather. I do think a lot of these stay more elevated, and I don't think they reach that severe weather potential. But don't be surprised if you wake up to a rumble of thunder or two overnight. And of course, if anything does get a little bit more intense, we of course have our Mississippi Live Weather app handy, and we also have Weather Call, as Matt has been talking about all week long. Go ahead and sign up for that if you have not already done so. Having those layers of protection are a necessity when severe weather strikes, and this one being our first one of the year, go ahead and have those preparations in place right now. You still have a little bit more time before that threat is overhead, and like I said, we'll be here every step of the way, so when you get those alerts, we'll be right here on Mississippi Live Weather, tracking the very latest for you here as we get into our Friday. So as I mentioned, if you don't have the app, go ahead and download so with the iOS and Android links down on the bottom of your screen. You can also tune in on the msliveweather.com, our website. And yeah, this is fully devoted to weather. I know some folks in the chat were saying, I thought this was all weather. Well, we do have our game of the week as well, and that's something we're hoping to run week to week. But that's why we moved it to Thursday, is because Friday is that severe weather threat, so we were able to get out there tonight. Folks are able to get out there tonight as well and enjoy a great game on the hardwood. We've been updating you guys all night long with Matt, and he's going to be there with you guys in the morning as well. So we're going to be here every step of the way, I assure you of that. But hey, it's nice to take a bit of a step back, enjoy some highlights before the main threat gets here. And that's why we did it on Thursday. And Friday is going to be, trust me, all about that severe weather threat. So go ahead and tune into that. Of course, Mississippi Live Weather app, like I mentioned, at the bottom of your screen. Download that today, and we'll keep you guys updated as we get into the extended forecast. I'm reading the chat a little bit. There's a few questions. If you don't have weather call, do I need to stay up all night? No. This is not anything that's overly concerning. Not seeing anything on models trending in the wrong direction. I think a lot of these do stay elevated. You will hear a few rumbles of thunder overnight, and do not be surprised by that. But if we're talking about severe storms, I think that threat still carries over into our afternoon as the highest possibility. But some of these storms could pack some damaging winds. So that's why go ahead and charge everything that you need to as we head overnight to be on the safe side. And so that way you'll be able to tune into the app if you do need to tune into anything as we head overnight. Turn on the alerts on the app. I've seen a few people asking about notifications on that front. And of course, we will have those notifications come through as needed as we work our way into Friday's forecast. And I saw another person say, no school. There will be school. I don't think school will be canceled for this. Actually, I'm not going to say I don't think. No, it will not be canceled for this. This is not going to be a widespread outbreak by any means. I think if we do have severe weather, it's going to be due to some strong wind gusts. A brief tornado is not impossible, but this isn't an outbreak, and we do expect that highest tornado potential to still be to our south, like we talked about a moment ago here on Mississippi Live Weather at 10. Looking at another, Nikki letting us know that Ole Miss lost by a few. Unfortunate. I know that I have a rebel at home. I'm going to give her a big hug when I get home. I'm so sorry. I'm still going to give you a hottie toddy for you because it was a great season. And for all the Rebel fans out there, you have a lot to be proud of. And don't worry, your main guys are coming back next year. So keep this run going, and it's still Golding season. Don't have to deal with the toxicity of a certain individual anymore as he's down south. And I think next year's shaping up to be a good one for you guys. So don't get too down on it. cheer for the Hoosiers, I guess, from here on out. Is that fair to say, Ethan? Yeah. And let me see. Thank you. I see some folks saying get some rest. Well, that's where we'll always have eyes behind the scenes on what's happening, and I'll be on duty overnight letting you guys know if there's any severe weather of concern. Matt's going to be with us as well. He's trying to get a few moments of sleep before he heads into that morning shift, but I know him. He'll be up. He'll be up monitoring this. So he'll be with you guys in the morning. I'll be back with you guys in the afternoon, and of course we'll all be looking at this as we get into that extended forecast. Trying to read through the last little bit of it. It's pretty breezy in Carolina community right now. Yeah, one of the things that I will say, it's already getting those southerly winds overhead. You're getting that moisture all the way through North Mississippi, and those are expected to climb because of how strong those southerly winds are. Appreciate. Oh, someone said something about the high school sports. I wanted to give Ethan a little shout out. Oh, let me find it. Don't get Gabe confused about school. Only real ones know about that. Pat saying, great job reporting on the high school activities tonight. Ethan is our guy that's going to be helping us with high school sports heading into that extended period all the way through high school basketball season, and he did a great job tonight. Definitely enjoyed those highlights. Come in and wave.
We're still here.
Our Ethan Foster. So he's going to be helping us on throughout the week and especially on Fridays with high school basketball. And a big shout out to him tonight. He did a fantastic job. And I hope you guys enjoyed those highlights. I love basketball highlights. And I guess now officially it's basketball season for everybody. So let us know next week where you guys want us to head. I'm going to try and not keep you guys up too much tonight. Gabriel, I would agree. Hey, all Gabes think alike. What can I say? US 82 South has the best tornado risk, and even then, I'm not overly high on it. There's going to be a few rotating storms that try to form, especially in South Mississippi, that are definitely catching our attention. But here in North Mississippi, I would say things are trending in the right direction as we head overnight. Brenda saying, thanks, Ethan. Thank you, Ethan. Nicole saying a huge hottie toddy. Yes, all of our Ole Miss fans, let us know down in the chat. Again, a lot to be proud of this year. And you got a trophy. After all, State didn't even get a trophy. So I'm a State fan, I could say it. So should New Albany be worried about tornadoes tonight? No. I think that the tornadic threat stays south of us, and I think that any storms that do form up here are going to be more elevated as they are forming out ahead of the moisture. Of course, keeping watch overnight. If anything does get a little bit haywire or the models were downtrending things, we don't expect that. But if that were the case, we'll be here every step of the way updating you guys on Mississippi Live Weather. Okay. You guys need to get some sleep, and so do we. Well, I guess at some point. I'll be here all night, so don't worry. But you guys go ahead and get some rest, and of course, go ahead and download that Mississippi Live Weather app down below and have Weather Call like we've been talking about all week long. Definitely worth your money, and trust me, your life is worth more than what that money is. So go ahead and invest that. It's going to be definitely a worthy investment. Our next broadcast happening bright and early with Chief Meteorologist Matt Laupon at 6:37 and 7:30. If needed, we will cut in for earlier coverage than that, and that's going to consist of potentially overnight hours, but of course that's as needed. And as of right now, I think that we're looking much better overnight tomorrow. That level 2 risk is still overhead, and I know our broadcast schedule says 5, 6, and 10. Again, that's going to be our shows. We might cut in before then as needed for any of those storms that are rolling on through North Mississippi. But go ahead and download that Mississippi Live Weather app today to stay updated on the very latest. And we will keep you guys updated live from the Room to Room Weather Center. Like I said, hotty toddy, it was a great year. But I hope you guys do have a great night. And of course, stay safe in all of the weather as we head into Friday.
Growing up, Gabe was naturally curious. When he began to discover weather, Gabe just didn't want to know what was happening, but he wanted to know why it was happening. Gabe became fascinated with tornadoes, and it impacted his life. He wanted to pursue a career in meteorology. Even though Gabe grew up in Alabama, Mississippi has now become his home and his family. And one thing about Gabe is he keeps his family safe.